Hey champions, Arian Tyson here. Wanted to shoot this video because I've been sitting here thinking about a lot of things that has transpired over the last couple weeks. And I wanted to shoot this video because something is just in my spirit and I don't know who this is for, but I know that it is on time and I know that it makes sense. So let me set the stage first by getting the shout outs out the way. So last week at this time, I was actually in Dallas, Texas for the first time after two previous failed attempts to travel. Something happened that was beyond my control and never made it down there. And so I finally was able to travel for the first time since COVID. Hadn't traveled in over 2 years. And I witnessed my cousins get married. So shout out to the Coopers. Got to shout out my cousin Damon. Got to shout out my cousin and my god sister Kelly. I'm happy for you all. I'm excited for what this new chapter in you all's journey is going to be. I wish you all the happiness that I wish for myself. And I know that the best is still to come because I learned more about you all's story than I actually knew during my time in Dallas last week. And I trust that you all have safe travels back from what looks to have been a phenomenal honeymoon, and you all deserve it. And I just know that you all felt the love and as we all championed and celebrated you all last weekend. Having said all that, one of the things that I thought about in thinking about their story is that there had to be, at some point, an apology that was made. And it got me to thinking, as I've thought a lot about on this week, you know, the big talk of the town is the slap heard around the world. And I don't plan on making a video about that because that has been talked about all week long and folks are exhausted at this point. And only if somebody asks me my thoughts on it, then I'll shoot a video. But I don't have any intention on doing that. But at the same token, there was some apologies that was made. One was real, one is kind of questionable. But it got me thinking because as we start this second quarter of the year, I thought about my father on this week, whose birthday was on the 28th of March. I think about my maternal grandfather, my grandpa, whose birthday is today, April 1st. And I think about how my parents were together over 40 years before my father passed. They had their ups and downs. My grandparents were together over 50 years before my grandpa passed away. They had their ups and downs. And somewhere in there, the correlation with that is that there was apologies that had to be made. And if I was to title this video, it would be that an apology doesn't end at saying sorry. So if you get value from what I'm about to say, feel free to like, comment, and share this video. Even as I think about my cousins, the Coopers, and hearing about their journey, there was a point where they were vibing, they were aligned, and then there was a point where there was a disconnect. And one went one way, the other went the other way. And life happened. But somehow what's meant for you will draw you back towards one another, where an opportunity presents itself to where you're able to reconcile. But how do you get to that point? And here's the thing. I'm going to speak about me, and then I'm going to speak about what God has revealed to me. One thing that I still believe, even in the times that we live in, is that a man's word has to still mean something. A man's word has to mean something. What do I mean? Do what you say you're going to do. And if I fall short, two things happen. I will either persist until it is accomplished, or I am man enough to acknowledge that I fell short and explain why. Because I value, and more importantly, I respect the relationship more than the need to be right. Too many times people focus on the need to be right versus valuing and respecting said relationships. And it doesn't sit well with me. And I guess it doesn't sit well with me because I was just built different. But it doesn't sit well with me when things are left unfinished, when things are left unsaid, when things are left undone. Because I remember everything I say. I remember everything I say. And I nearly remember everything someone says to me. Don't say it if you don't mean it. Because men, especially this man, by and large, care about respect more than anything else. An apology doesn't end at saying sorry. It doesn't. A real apology, let me break this down. A real apology involves addressing the issue and addressing the behavior that hurt the person or caused the person to feel hurt. Take responsibility for your mistakes and make sure that you don't invalidate their experience. Validate their experience. Be patient with them. Give them the space to observe. Give them the space to and learn how to accept their emotions. Because a genuine apology, it's a process. It's a process where you work towards rebuilding trust, towards healing wounds. Many times things fall apart because you're dealing with a person who has not healed from past wounds. Chances are you're not even responsible for those wounds. But you find yourself at the wrong place at the wrong time in their eyes. But that doesn't give the person who's hurt you the right to invalidate how you feel. Listen to the other person carefully and make a conscious effort to seek to understand their point of view instead of rushing to react, instead of rushing to respond. Be attentive. Be attentive. Why is that important? Because it will help you avoid making the same mistake over and over again. It's important to speak your truth. But it's important to speak your truth with compassion and also with care. We have to get back to where we began again, to own our weaknesses, own our own mistakes, because we all have them. Doesn't matter how holier than thou you act. It doesn't matter how glowing your strengths are. You still have weaknesses. You still have shortcomings. And it is far more honest to accept and face them rather to ignore and hide them. Folks have become real good at ignoring folks or hiding things. How's that worked out for you? Because you're still bitter. You're still alone. You're still lonely. And you still sound like a broken record. Where's the change at? In yourself, in your thought process, in your behavior. Where's the change at? Here's the deal. Before you love, you got to be able to trust. Also, you have to know before you put yourself in a position to judge. Before you promise, and promise, that word promise is a big thing to me. Before you promise, you need to commit. And certain things you need to forget. But in order for you to forget them, you need to learn how to forgive. And if you have regret, and if you're living with regrets, you need to learn how to appreciate. Sometimes it's hard to be hopeful, but it's not impossible. Sometimes it really is hard to be hopeful, especially in the times we live in, because you may worry about a future that in your eyes seems uncertain. And you're too busy thinking about what's going to happen next. And to cope with such feelings, you have to take it one day at a time and embrace every little thing that brings you joy instead of embracing the things that hurt you. Embrace the things that bring you joy rather than postponing your own happiness. Happiness is an inside job. You have to do your own work. You have to work on you, but it starts with you being honest with yourself. And those little things, why are the little things important to embrace them? Because they are resting places. They're resting places for hope and faith, even in the midst of turmoil, even in the midst of difficulties. So you can find and have a sense of fulfillment in the day that's already in front of you. Take care of your basic physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional needs. Begin to focus on all the good stuff instead of all the trash and all the garbage and all the gossip. Focus on the good stuff that's happening around you instead of all the nonsense that may be happening around you. And if you're able to show up and follow what you set out to do, even in the midst of tough times, because tough times don't last, then that in itself is an achievement. If you don't remember anything else I've said in this video, remember this. An apology doesn't mean that you were wrong. It just means that you value the relationship and you value the respect more than your own ego. It does not mean that you were wrong. It doesn't even mean that the other person was right. It just means that you value the relationship more than your own ego. That's what my grandfather and my grandmother did to get to over 50 years of marriage. That's what my parents did to be together over 40 years before my father passed. And they were married almost 35 years before my father passed. That's what I know is going to happen. That's what allowed two individuals that have known each other for over 20 years now to come back together, live two different lives, and then come back together at the right time. And now they share his last name. So I wanted to share that with you. Learn how to apologize, but realize that an apology doesn't end at just simply saying sorry. If you got value from this, feel free to like, comment, and share this video. In life, you have two choices. You can make moves or you can make excuses, but you most certainly cannot do both. It's yours truly, Arian, Tyson, the Moving Motivator, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace.